Like if you try and please everybody, you're probably gonna end up pleasing nobody, and you're not gonna be your true self, so you're not gonna feel fulfilled. I think that the best thing you can do is just be yourself, like unapologetically, just lean into whoever you are as a person. If people like it, great. If they don't like it, fuck them.
Boom. How we feeling, bro?
I'm good, dude. How are you?
I'm excellent, dude. I'm really pumped for you to be here.
This feels full circle because you were the first. I'm not the first on yours, but you were the first on mine.
Yes.
About a year ago.
Yes. That was a very fun day. It's okay. No one was the first on mine. I was the first from mine.
Okay. Well, I'm 5. I mean, 5. It's still top 10.
5 is top 10, and you have to put it in the landscape of the people I've interviewed. So 3.
Okay.
Top 3.
I'll take that.
Top 3.
I think it's probably close to. I should have looked at the date because it's got to be almost to a T a year.
It probably is very close to 1 year ago.
Yeah.
I forgot when you posted that pod.
I launched it like the first week of April. So
yeah. So we're coming up.
Yeah.
11 months.
Yeah, and we recorded earlier, but anyways.
I love it, dude. Well, I'm really glad that we got to get a lift in too. Dude, we just got a pump in.
A freaking bro sesh for a couple of runners.
And yo, you said you don't do much mobility.
None at all.
Jeremy, we gotta up the mobility. Your strength is on point.
Yeah.
500-pound deadlift, sub 5-minute mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that harder than doing mobility?
I think no, it's not. Mobility is harder.
Fair.
Because mobility, you don't get the return. I feel like it's not as tangible as a return as like just going and picking up weights or going for a run.
Yeah.
The mobility, it's like the slow. You have to play the long game with it because you're not going to see results instantly.
For sure.
Which is hard.
For sure. It's similar to like base building when you're getting into running. It's a slow burn.
Yeah. But I will say, I've spent time before doing mobility. And then I experimented not doing it, and I felt the same from both after like a period of time. So I'm like, I don't know if I need it. I don't know.
Fair.
It's subjective. I could probably use it though.
I love it. All right, I mean, Jeremy, for the very few people that might not know you, what's like give me like the quick origin story of Jeremy Miller in a minute.
Ooh, in a minute. It's very similar to your story, honestly. Like, played sports growing up. I was never the best on the team, but I loved just being active. I loved the teamwork aspect of sports. I loved putting in hard work and seeing a result from that. And so when I was done playing sports and after high school, I was like, I need something else to occupy myself, keep myself healthy and fit. And so my fiance and I were living in Hawaii in 2018 doing an exchange program, and I was sitting on the bus going to school, and I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast, put on this guy named David Goggins. Never heard of him before, but I was like, this guy seems interesting, why not? And then he starts telling the David Goggins story that many of us know now of, running 100 miles without training and doing all this crazy shit that he's done. And I'm like, shit, this seems like a really cool thing to maybe get into, is this endurance sport side of things. So I went back home, grabbed like an old pair of gym shoes out of my closet and threw them on, went out and just ran a mile as hard as I could. No clue what I was doing. And I basically did that for like a year. Just would go run 1 mile a day, 2 miles a day. I would try to set a new PR for the mile every day, basically. I was like, this is how you train for running, right? Like I took the mindset from sports. Yeah. Like if you're not sweating, if you're not breathing hard, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how I didn't get hurt more often than I did, because I would just go as hard as I could every day. And then that kind of progressed into like, okay, I can run a mile really good now. But what if I wanted to go farther? What if I wanted to do like 5 miles or eventually do a 100 miler like Goggins or something? And so that's where I learned you have to slow down a little bit. Yeah. I started learning more about like heart rate training and zones and fartleks and different ways to train for running instead of just going as hard as you could all the time. And that was like a couple year process. And then my very first race was a 12-hour endurance race in the mountains in Wyoming. Had like 12 hours to just run as many miles as you could. I had the bright idea to try and run 50 miles because I was like, Goggins did 100 miles in 24 hours. Couldn't I do 50 in 12? I wasn't trained properly whatsoever. Yeah. And then I ended up doing 43. So it was like decent for my first race. But after that, I was like, okay, what if I actually like really trained properly, had like a 5-month build up to something and did it the right way? I might be decent at this thing. And so that's where I kind of got hooked into the racing side of things, of like doing half marathons, and then finally did my first marathon and a whole bunch of stuff in between now and then. But yeah. And then, I mean, this could be a 10-minute answer, but I've done a bunch of races now, done a lot of cool fitness challenges, started creating content.
Yeah.
Large part due to meeting you in Austin probably 2 years ago-ish.
I think so. I remember when I DM'd you.
Yeah. And now we're here sitting on a podcast talking about it. So
it's amazing, dude. It's been really fun to see you grow from afar. Obviously that I still remember that day. I was like, Jeremy, I was like, yo, do you want to shoot this thing with Nike?
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah. I was like, you were like, yo, meet me at the Austin High. And like in my mind, like obviously at the time you were at BPN. And I kind of knew internally, I'm like, yo, I wanted, like when I first moved to Austin, I wanted to get connected with media guys and people that were in the space. And obviously with like what Nick's done with BPN, he's crushed. And it was super fun for us to get connected there. But I think the actual moment when we had that talk at Bennu Coffee, that was actually more of a proper conversation that you and I had that obviously has led you to do some amazing stuff, which I'm really excited to get into today. I guess as we get into it, like, we have Switchback right here, which I want to kind of dive into. But prior to that, like you grew up in a small town in Wyoming. Now you live in Austin, a growing city. Like what part of your roots as a kid living in a small town has kind of like given you like what have you taken from that experience into like where you are now?
I feel like there's definitely benefits of growing up in a small town. I feel like it kind of gives you the mindset of you can have a lot of impact. Because if you grow up in a big city, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, you feel just like another person.
Yeah.
Like you don't feel very significant. And growing up in a small town, like I think my town is 50,000 people. My high school was like 1,000 people maybe. So it's like you can almost have more impact, it feels like, because you don't see the whole world. You just see this like small little town that you're in and you kind of know everybody. And it just feels like you have more impact or more significance, I think. And so I think that gives you a lot of confidence. So once you leave that, you're like, oh, I can go do whatever I want because I'm more significant. Because I feel like people like grow up in a big city.
There's competition.
There's constant competition. It's hard to be unique. Whereas in a small town, you kind of get that element of it, I feel like. But yeah, the biggest culture shock was when we moved to Hawaii because I'd never lived anywhere outside of Wyoming for the first like 21 years of my life. It was born and raised in that small town, 50,000 people, and then go to Hawaii for a year. It was like vastly different, like in every way. So it was a culture shock, but getting out of that hometown was probably the best thing I've ever done.
I love that.
It was for sure like the culture shock for sure of just like seeing, oh wow, not everybody lives the way people in Wyoming live. Like people eat different food, they talk differently, they work different jobs, whatever it is. And then just being able to get out of your comfort zone and be more independent. Like there's benefit, I guess, or there's nothing wrong with staying in your hometown or living in a small town. People are fine with that. You can be content with that. But I feel like there's just more out there.
Of course.
Like if I'd still probably be doing the same thing I did in high school, 10 years ago. I'd still be doing that today if I stayed there because you just kind of get sucked into that. So I encourage anybody to get out of their comfort zone, move across the country, move to whatever city you've been dreaming of living in, and just get out of your hometown. Honestly, I think that's one of the best things you can do.
Do people think that you're a little crazy from your hometown? Like do they see you now? Like, like what is that like? Like, what is that like?
People are just like, oh, you're that running guy. I never thought you'd be into running, or I never pictured you as like the Instagram guy. And I really don't talk with people that much from my hometown, but I go back and visit once a year.
Of course.
And so when I do, that's always the conversation is like, oh, make sure you film this. It's like talking shit about like being a content creator or whatever, which is fine because it's like part of the job. But yeah, do you get the same thing when you go back or?
Somewhat. I don't know. I mean, maybe like Maryland, where I grew up, like it was relatively big. Like, it was like a big suburb. I mean, my high school had 2,000 kids, so it was like maybe twice the size. Less of it being like, I think people in my town and where I grew up, like they understand the landscape of social because they all consume on it. It's funny how people are willing to like throw jabs while they're the ones that are just sitting there consuming.
Right.
So it's like, I'd rather be someone that has like something to critique than just being the critiquer of just, oh, your stuff is good or not good, or, oh, but you better film this. Like, okay, like I will. It's like, okay, like, right.
Yeah, in Wyoming, something about it feels like it's always 10 years behind everybody else.
Fair.
I mean, it's in the West, it's a small town. So it's like they're 5-10 years behind the trends.
Yeah.
It's like you go downtown Austin, there's people walking around with like Apple Vision Pros on their faces. Like you won't catch anybody in Wyoming with that.
100%.
But maybe that's part of it too, is just like it's very conservative, old-fashioned kind of living. So
yes.
A content creator doesn't really make sense to them.
Of course. It's not as people aren't as open-minded about it, or just the concept of doing something that's unconventional.
Yeah.
All right. So the story of how you got to BPN was that you were filming at a trail race.
Leadville. Yeah.
You were at Leadville.
Yeah, I was filming. So one of my friends from Wyoming, he was doing it was called the Grand Slam of Hundreds.
Yeah.
It's 4 100-mile races, the 4 original 100-mile races in the U.S. And this is when I was doing like freelance videos still, doing all the content for other people. And I was like, dude, let me come film these 400-mile races for you. So I was out there filming them. Leadville was the 3rd one, I think. And at the time I was following Nick, following BPN, all their stuff. And knew they were going to be out there. And I was like, okay, I got to talk to these guys. I would love to work there someday. Yeah. But I didn't want to be that like crazy fan of like, oh my God, I love you guys. I want to come work for you. So I just like introduced myself, like played it cool. I was like, what's up? How's it going? Like got their Instagrams, and we just kind of stayed in touch for a couple months after that. And then they hit me up like, hey, we're hiring for a videographer for Nick's personal media team. Do you want to come out to Austin and live with us or live here and work with us? Yeah. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So at the time we were living in South Carolina. So we moved from South Carolina out here. Bree and the dogs and me all came out here in early 2022, and then worked for them for about 6 months, 8 months. You were like one of the first people I met in Austin outside of BPN, and just seeing you operate, and like I was like, dude, there's something to this like personal brand and creating content, and Austin seems like a hotbed of people that are doing this kind of thing. And so I learned a ton working for Nick and BPN. I mean, he's been doing content creation for 10 years. Like he started on YouTube, and he's so good at it. I mean, he's done it for 10 years. He's done, I don't know, 800 videos or something. Been building his business. They're, 10, I don't know what is it, like 8-figure business or something, like tens of millions of dollars a year. So super successful business, super successful personal brand. So being a part of that and seeing how that operates, was a huge learning experience. I'm sure. And that's kind of how I treated it from the beginning of like, this isn't my end goal to stay here forever. I want to take this, treat it as a learning experience, get as much out of it as I can, and then go do my own thing eventually. So gave it about 6 months, chatted with you throughout the whole process. And that coffee shop day of, dude, it was like, I was on the fence of leaving, and I'm like, man, do you think I could do it? And you're like, just fucking do it. Just make the jump. And that was what I needed, because it gave me the confidence of like, you're like, I did it. Why couldn't you do it? And I'm like, let's do it, man. So I just started posting every day on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And now like a year and a half later, here we are.
Massive growth. Yeah. I think there's something to be said about like when there's an initial thought in your mind. I'm a big Denzel Washington fan, and he had this thing. He spoke at like at a college, and he was like that little thought, that little voice that every human has in their mind, in their heart, of like I want to do that thing. Like I don't know if it's smart or not, but like I think it's gonna be like it's what I want to do. It's almost like I believe in God. Whatever someone believes in, it's like your sign that it's yours for the taking. But like you have to take some action to like go execute on it. And at that moment, you knew what your heart was telling you, but like you just had to like make the leap of faith. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, like they struggle with the leap of faith of having someone in their corner, whether it's a family or friend or whoever, like someone that's giving them like some positive reinforcement. And dude, it's been so fun to see you crush it, because it's like all that was a conversation, bro. And like you let that thing fire you up, and you've set PRs, you've ran crazy races, you started businesses. Like it's amazing. For like your story should be like an inspiration for a lot of people. Yeah, I hope it is. And one thing I preach to people too is like, just like me, just like you, like we're just regular people. Like period. We're just regular humans. Like we all put our pants on the same way every morning. And if we can do it, you can do it too. So yeah, and it doesn't have to be content creation. It doesn't have 100%. To be a personal brand. It doesn't have to be a business, but like whatever that thing is that fires you up and gets you excited to get out of bed every morning. Period. Just go do it. And you might not know what that path is going to look like, but you'll figure it out along the way. I didn't stop my watch from the workout. My stuff was beeping too. Oh shit. Where did the camera, picking up the camera for you, where did that start? Because you were, like you said, you recorded the 400s, the Grand Slam, but where did the creative act begin for you? Yeah, it was high school. I got like one of the early GoPros. Love it. It was like when GoPros were super popular when they first came out. I was like, let's get one of these, mess around with it. We were
my friends and I would just film stupid videos of like, I don't know, skateboarding and like going to the park on our bicycles, like just dumb stuff. There was no story, there was nothing to it, but that act of like documenting it and then taking it back to the computer, cutting it together. I was using like iMovie, just put music and clips together. It was so simple and rudimentary, but like that process was so fun because I was like, man, I could look back on this in 10 years and it's like this moment in time that I have. It's that documentation process. So I loved that aspect of it. And then in high school, I took a photo video class. There's only one class, but I took it like 3 times because I loved it so much. So we learned how to like write a narrative and, you know, the rule of thirds and how to learn the settings on a DSLR camera and just kind of everything within photo and video. And just got obsessed with that. And then when Bree and I lived in Hawaii, when we first moved there, we were like, what's a way we can get ourselves to maximize our time here and just make the most of it? Because we only had 9 months living in Hawaii. It's like this beautiful place. We want to soak it up as much as we can. So we're like, what if we started a YouTube channel and posted a video every single week? So every Sunday we'd upload a video of like the restaurants we were going to, the hikes we were doing, the beaches we'd go to, the people we'd meet. And our vlogs were so bad. Like we actually debated quitting like 3 episodes in because we're like getting 100 views. Nobody watched them. The video sucked. I didn't know how to edit. And, we're like, we should just stop this. Like, this is a waste of our time. But it was keeping us like getting out and doing all these things. Like, we're like, oh, we got to post a video this week. We got to go do something. Even if nobody watches it. I mean, we can watch it in 5-10 years and have that memory to look back on. And so I think by the end of it, we ended up doing like 35 vlogs. And it didn't really grow that much. And so I quit posting because they weren't that good of videos back then. So I quit posting. I was like, man, I'll never be able to be a content creator. Like, this just isn't in the cards. And then, so I went freelance basically. While I was still in college, my parents wanted me to go to law school, but I was like, this video thing is so fun. Maybe I shouldn't go to law school. So I finished out my undergrad, political science. And, the day I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go full-time freelance, photo, video, try and figure out this media thing. Did that for like 2 years. And then I got the job at BPN. And I did every kind of photo video job you could think of, like weddings and real estate videos, like pet sitting business commercials, like everything you could possibly think of. I shot basically. But I got kind of bored of it and I could never really found something that like really lit me up other than when I did that documentary on the ultra running. So that's when I started getting more into like the fitness media side of things. Fair. And then now using all those skills I built over the like 3-4 years of doing the freelance stuff to then just implementing it into my own personal brand. And instead of somebody else being the subject, it's just me being the subject, but I'm still using all those skills of the lighting and the mics and the cameras and the editing and everything. So it's like the overnight success takes 10 years. I started doing this in 2013 probably. So it's been a full decade of trying to figure out how to edit and shoot. And it's now finally, I think, really paying off, which is cool.
That's amazing, dude. I love that you guys had the channel and like it wasn't growing and you're like, yo, I don't know if this is for me. I wish shorts would have been our thing back then. Right. Because it was only long form on YouTube. And long form is hard. It's very difficult. It's time consuming. Making sure the videos have substance to them is difficult. And I think we went from 0 to like 2,000 followers in like a year. So it grew a little bit, but not what we wanted to see, obviously. Yeah. I love what you said though about like you building your skill set, even though like people weren't like, you weren't getting like the attention or the buzz yet. Like there was something internally for you that was like, yo, like whether it's freelance or not, like I'm still going to lean into the creative side. And then obviously to your point now, as you got to work at BPN, you got to see an operator run his business and also be the creator. And then you were like, yo, let me just point the camera myself and start talking about what I'm doing. From there, you ran a ton of races. I mean, dude, you've been running. Not as many as you, I feel like. Probably not as many, but you set some awesome PRs. I want to kind of lean into it because one, your first marathon was a 3:01? 3 hours and 54 seconds. I'm sorry. So that was like the very first one. And then you went to BPN's marathon? That was the first one. Yeah. Okay. So that one was 3. Yes, that was 2 years ago. So 2022. Yeah. Ran 3 hours, 54 seconds. Tried to break 3 and bonked so hard. I had no clue what I was doing. That was like when I was still trying to figure out running. I kind of got it. That was a total grit fest. Like, and then your next marathon from there? That was the Eugene Marathon, like 3 months later. That was 2 hours, 58 minutes. Okay. So night and day. I hired a coach for that one. Fair. That's what really,
I feel like I was so stubborn for so many years of like, I'm gonna figure this out on my own. I don't want to read books. I don't want to listen to podcasts about running. I just want to go out and do it and figure it out. And that, I mean, it got me to a 3:01 marathon without any coach or anything.
Right, which is great.
Once I hired the coach, I was like, oh, I should probably use other resources because it's very helpful.
What was the biggest thing that you've learned from the coach?
The programming side of things for sure. And then I think the confidence to like push harder than you think you can. Cause like I was working with Jeff Cunningham and he'd give me like a 22-mile workout and I'm like, you expect me to run 22 miles at these paces? Like there's no way. And then I'd go out and I would do it. But without that accountability there, without somebody telling me to go do it, I probably never would have done it. So having that coach is super, super powerful because I think it just allows you to tap into more of yourself.
Those workouts are the ones I like the least.
Those are probably my favorite ones now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yo, for some reason, I actually think it's harder to like run those like, and what Jeremy's talking about is basically like a long run where you're incorporating marathon paces.
Yeah.
When you first did those, like, did you struggle to like to get into the pace like later into the run? Because for whatever reason, like when I do those, I find that it's hard to like do 3 miles at the pace and then rest for a mile and then do it again.
It's tough. The more you do it, the better you get at it, obviously. Sure. But the thing with running is like, as soon as you start to get better at it, you just make the paces faster or you make the distances longer. So it never gets easier. You just get more used to it, I think. But yeah, those workouts specifically, it's hard. Like this last weekend, I did kind of a variation of that. It was 12 miles easy and then 5 miles at marathon pace. So like an hour and 40 minutes at just easy casual pace and having to turn on to like 6-minute pace. I'm like, this is so hard. So yeah, it never gets easier, but it's, I don't know. You just kind of get used to it, I guess.
I mean, it's like a confidence thing too, I'm sure. It's so strange because like I've done marathons where I'm ran sub 3, bro, and I look at the splits, I'm like, I don't know why I could do that for like 25 miles, but then for whatever reason I can't do that for like a 3x4. Like,
right.
It's interesting.
I think that's an element of it, and I think that's why those workouts work so well. Is because you have to really like get dialed in on the paces. You can't just set cruise control like you can in a marathon.
Yeah.
So maybe I think those workouts are harder than a race day. Because you're fluctuating, you're going back and forth with the intervals. Instead of just set cruise control, turn your brain off and just run. I think it is harder for sure.
Sure.
But that's why they work.
From there, you attempted a 250.
Yeah.
And you were a couple minutes off.
Yeah, you did your research on this. I like it.
I mean, dude, I follow you. So it's just like, it's not even research. I mean, this is me just knowing a friend. I'm like we're going to break down each of these. And then, but it was what, 250?
252 in Boston, yeah.
252 in Boston, which is a challenging course.
It was hard. I was kind of injured going into it. I had like a weird hip thing. And it poured rain. I mean, you were there.
Yeah,
it poured rain.
Not the greatest day.
Yeah. The hard part with that course too is, and again, you know this, but there were so many people to start that I needed to run, what is 250? I think it was like 6:30 pace or something, but we were stuck behind so many people that the first like 3 miles, we couldn't even break 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it was just so packed with people. So, I mean, these are excuses, but there were elements to that.
No, for sure. And for people, if you haven't ever been to Boston, like, because there's only 30,000 runners and like you have to qualify to get into the race. So whatever race that, like, if you qualified at sub 3, like, there means that there's a lot of people that are going to be running at that 650 to 645 pace.
Yeah.
So it's like very packed for a couple miles at Boston. And the first 3 miles, like, yeah, it's like you have to run that pace because like you can't like have fun and like record because like you're just getting in the way with people.
Right. And I went back and forth because you just ran that race for fun.
But like, dude, the first 6 miles I ran that pace because I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like you're like literally in, like you're jam packed in there.
The roads are so narrow.
Yes.
Too.
Very narrow.
Yeah, I went back and forth on like, should I do this as a fun run, take my phone, film it, or just race it? And I don't know if one is right or wrong, but I was like, let's race it. I'll run Boston again. I can film it again. Might as well just send it on this one.
And low key, Boston's kind of strict with filming.
Really? Did you get in trouble for filming there?
I did.
Oh no.
I did.
Where don't you get in trouble?
Jeremy, I get in trouble everywhere. But there's actually something written in their rules of you're not allowed to bring a GoPro or a camera.
Really?
Like you can't hold any handheld. And it's like just like they're, I don't know. It's interesting, but it says in fine print that it's only if you are monetizing it is when it's not allowed. Plenty of people record for themselves for their own memories, and like that's okay. But like I talked to my buddy Mike Kofuzi, and like he just like didn't care. He was like, so what? Like, I don't have to run Boston again. It's like basically what he said. He's like, if they ban me, they ban me. But yeah, I think I don't know, dude. I mean, I can go onto a tangent about how I feel like sometimes the running community can also be very like by the book and just so uppity about certain stuff. But that's not kind of the point.
I mean, you got flipped off in the Austin Marathon.
I know, dude. I mean, it's just, I embrace everything, dude. I embrace it all.
I mean, that's how you know you're doing something right, I think, is when you start getting some haters. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure, and that was actually something I wanted to chat about with you today is like how you deal with that. I think it's you're not going to be liked. I think something we've always chatted about is like, yeah, it's like, dude, people are gonna have something to say.
Yeah,
and it's their right to have an opinion. And it's like, I can't really change how someone's going to think about me or how I make them feel. All I can change is like my internal thoughts about it. So, I think having haters is not a bad thing. Like, do I live every single day to be like, I want to be hated? Definitely not. But if that comes along the process of me also making positive impact and helping other people along the way of a couple people or some people hating me, it's the price that we got to pay.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be yourself. And through that, like if you try and please everybody, then you're probably going to end up pleasing nobody. And you're not going to be your true self. So you're not going to feel fulfilled. So I think that the best thing you can do is just be yourself, like unapologetically, just lean into whoever you are as a person. If people like it, great. If they don't like it, great. Fuck them.
Yes.
It's a hard thing to overcome too. And it's like, I'm sure you've dealt with this of putting your life online, putting it out on the internet is like being vulnerable, sharing things that aren't always great and sharing things that, that you know people might not like or resonate with, but just doing it anyways because that's who you are.
Period.
It's a hard thing to do for sure. And it's, I think, a constant learning process. Like,
how do you feel like when you get negative feedback, like early on, maybe because like I think this is like something that calluses over time, no different than running, no different than lifting or anything, right? It's like you get better at it as you do more.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like your opinion on maybe on the first video is like, oh, it kind of burns, but 50 videos in, 100 videos in, you're like, that's just Joe being upset, you know?
Yeah, it's just when you see negative comments, usually I think it's some outward reflection of that person's own insecurities or own thing that they're going through. I think everybody kind of has that. Everybody talks about that, but I mean, every video I post, there's some negative comment. Like it's the 1% of comments, 99% of them are very positive. But yeah, I think I love reading comments because I think it's really good feedback. There's a lot of questions in there. I like engaging with the community. Actually, one of the best things I heard recently, I had Taro on the podcast. He's the CEO of Four Sigmatic, the like mushroom coffee.
Love it.
And he's like, I think if you just use social media to post content and that's it, you're using social media wrong. He's like, you need to post and engage with the audience. You need to reply to comments. You need to answer DMs. You need to do Q&As because otherwise it's just this one-sided conversation. And I never heard anybody really talk about that before within content creation. It's like, what are you posting? How are you framing your content? Like, how do you make your content better? It's always about the content, which is important, but how do you also go about community building and engaging with the community? So, that's why I like to read comments. That's why I like to engage with the community as much as I can. It's time consuming, but
it's an investment.
It's an investment for sure. But I think it's worth it because at the end of the day, if you're just posting a bunch of stuff online and you're not engaging with anybody, are you like really building much? Maybe a little bit, but I feel like that's where you really build a strong community.
I think it's what you said. It's just, it becomes a one-sided relationship where you're putting stuff out there, but then people that are supporting you or following you like don't feel like they have a connection to you.
Right.
And I think that's actually to your point in terms of like even responding to DMs or something that I was doing like a ton of early on is like it's using people's questions or their comments as the hook to a video.
Yeah.
Like I think that framework of like, oh, someone gets to see their comment on the front of the video and I'm directly answering it with another story about why I ran slow at the New York City Marathon, but you're still able to like give people a different look on like what happened at that race or a different POV or whatever, but you're engaging with it. So I think to your point, there's a lot of positive in building that because you start to develop like diehard fans.
Yeah.
Which I think end up being consumers, 100%. End up being the ones that follow you outside of just the platform. And I think that's very important to understand that platforms itself are great, but we don't own them. If Instagram and TikTok get deleted tomorrow, like if you don't have a way to communicate to people outside of that, then you could have millions of followers and it's you're screwed.
Yeah, it's worthless. Yeah. How do you go about, I know like email lists are huge. How do you try and diversify that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think email list is the one thing that I'm like literally that my goal for the end of the year is to 10x the list I have now. I think that is it's tried and true. I mean, there's text lists, there's email lists. I mean, for me, I think email is a focus, and it's why a lot of like, if I ever generate PDFs or like one-off sheet, like resources, it's always typically free, because I'm just like, I just want to collect an ecosystem of people that are interested, whether it's in content creation or in running. But I would say that's like the main way that I'm able to get it.
Yeah. And you own that list too. Like,
period.
Nobody can take that.
No one.
Yeah, as long as, there's something like MailChimp or something, I guess, to send the email.
Of course. You need some form of a distribution platform.
Exactly, yeah.
But like that list can be an incentive for a brand.
Right.
Down the line, or a brand that you make, right? Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Dude, today Instagram was shut down for like 3 hours.
I saw that.
And I'm like, that exact thought went through my head. I was like, I mean, I don't know, China could hack Instagram or something.
Period.
And it's like, it could be gone forever. Who knows? And those, for my 140K followers are now gone. Nothing.
It's fairy dust.
So yeah, so it's like, how do you diversify that? And really at the end of the day, I mean, it is truly just a number on the screen, because it can be taken away like that. So yeah, I think that's where the in-person relationships play a big role too.
1000%. I think that's like, especially post-COVID, and like now we're like obviously like way past that. It's like, I think 2024 is like what I'm seeing from brands right now, and from people that are making like impact in this space. It's like every single brand wants to have a local rep that's going to be able to be at events, that's going to be able to be at a run club, that can rep the brand, that can rep the shoe, whatever it is. I think the IRL stuff is becoming almost equally as valuable as online. I mean, distribution at scale, you can't really compete with making a post and it going to millions of people. But there's something to be said of, you host a run club and 300 people show up and they're like potential buyers.
Right.
Or enthusiasts of a brand, of a product, whatever it might be.
It's basically this big funnel. And I think that's the very bottom of the funnel is the in-person events. It's like top is probably Instagram Reels or TikToks or YouTube Shorts. Then from there you have like long form YouTube videos and you have podcasts. And then I think that next step is the in-person stuff, because I mean, the numbers kind of reflect that too. It's like you can put out an Instagram Reel, hit 1 million people fairly easily. But to get 1 million views on a YouTube video or a podcast, that's a lot harder. To get 1 million people together in person, that's even harder than that. So it's like the more intimate that relationship is with the audience, with the consumer, the community, the more valuable it is, obviously, because it's like if you get 300 people to show up in person, that's like, they're like a highly engaged audience. And so that's very, very valuable. That's a big focus with Switchback, is trying to get as many people together in person as we 100%. Can. So we've done maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 shakeout runs and some sort of group run since we launched in August. And each one, it just gets a little bit bigger wherever we do it. And we're trying to figure out the in-person events, because it's tough.
I'm sure.
Just logistically, like, okay, what do people want? Like, what can we feasibly provide for people? So,
because it's an investment, and it's also a form of marketing, community building, and honestly, it's an investment in the brand in the long run. Jeremy, for people that don't know, like, talk about Switchback really quick.
Yeah, it's a community brand. There it is. There's the tub. It's a community.
It tastes very good, by the way. I'm not being biased.
I love that. We got a third flavor coming out that's banging.
I love that.
But yeah, so the flagship product is the electrolytes. I've used pretty much every electrolyte product you can find, and I was never really stoked about any of them. There's a couple like high quality ones out there, but the ones that I feel like are high quality didn't really have a strong brand or community. And then the brands, especially in the supplement running space, that do have great products, or the ones that do have good community, they don't have great products. It's like kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
So we're like, what if we kind of bridge that gap? What if we like make really high quality products and have the community with it? So we started with the electrolytes. In my opinion, it's like the highest quality electrolytes you can buy. I'm biased for sure, but tying that in with the community side of things. So through an online community, through in-person events specifically. So right now it's a lot of like group runs, shakeout runs before big races. And then eventually we'd love to kind of do like big events, like partner with other brands or big creators and have like a full like day experience of like saunas and cold plunges and group runs and like different classes and like a full on event that people can come to and attend. But the community side of things, I think, like we talked about, it's so important from like a business and branding perspective, but just from like a personal side, like those are my favorite memories in my whole life, is like when I'm with people doing something active with like-minded people and just getting out, you know, whether it's going for a run or a lift or whatever. Like today, like we just got together and lifted. It's like, that's so much fun because you're being healthy, you're moving your body, and you're making a connection with somebody. So providing that platform for other people through a group run or through some in-person event. So yeah.
Why electrolytes?
Part of the reason I kind of said, I guess, was like I tried so many electrolytes, I didn't love them.
It's a runner staple.
Yeah, I mean, every runner needs electrolytes, and not even just runners, but like any humans need electrolytes.
Humans.
And so obviously the more you sweat, especially being in Austin, like it's hot, it's humid here. Every time you sweat, you're losing electrolytes. And so you have to constantly be drinking them. And especially if you eat a whole foods diet too, like whole foods diet doesn't have a lot of sodium in it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, meat, fruit, vegetables, eggs, that kind of thing. If you eat a lot of processed foods, you probably have plenty of sodium.
Yeah.
But if you eat a relatively healthy diet, you're probably sodium deficient. So yeah, trying to supplement with that.
Do you think like, I mean, obviously, and you don't have to answer this if you're not comfortable.
I'm an open book.
Is the plan supplements like down the line, or like other stuff, like in like making like a full scale like supplement company?
Yes. But it would probably be we wouldn't do like protein powder and like multivitamins, like the classic supplements. We'd probably keep it within endurance sports. So like running, cycling, you know, because they use similar fuels. But I think next year we'll probably come out with a carb source, something like a Tailwind or like a Morton or something like that people can fuel with. Because this is something you can drink every day.
Yeah.
But creating something more for like the performance side, I think there's definitely still a need for that, especially with the community aspect to it.
I agree. Like I don't see Morton having any group runs or like community. Yeah. And part of that is that like I guess you can make the argument that you don't have to.
Right.
Like that's basically what the argument is, right? It's like I've never seen a Tailwind running club or like any ambassador repping Tailwind and using that as like a flagship community building opportunity. I think that it's an interesting thing. I think you're at a great time right now because creator-led brands and businesses is like kind of like the new wave. I have a lot of friends that are in the VC and like the investing world, and like that's actually like the name of the game moving forward. It's because you have distribution.
Yeah. I mean, within the first 3 months, we broke $100,000. Like we broke 6 figures in 3 months with zero paid marketing.
Exactly.
Like literally 100% through my channels, Brock's channels, and then that's my business partner with Switchback, and then just like sending the product out to a few people. So like paid zero for marketing, brought in over $100,000, which is nuts.
I mean, it's there's a competitive advantage with having your own distribution and understanding that you don't have to like funnel a ton of money into Facebook and Instagram to push ads. And like, if you use ads down the line, it's just another piece of the marketing. It's not the only thing you're relying on. And I think like, I mean, I've really been leaning into studying what Mr. Beast is doing and like Ryan Trahan, and like Ryan just launched his Joyrides, which is a freaking sour strip gummy.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that.
Sour strips. It's like literally like I used to eat these as a kid. Like I was a fiend. But I'm saying that just to say like, it's a product that they have now that they can distribute to their audience. And I don't think Ryan ever launched the product until, I mean, he's amassed 10 plus million followers on
Have you connected with him? He lives here in Austin, I think.
Dude, the only time I met Ryan, it was 2 instances. I saw him once at Collective, and then like about a month ago, I was running up South Congress, and he just goes, "Hey, Matt." Like, and I had never met him in person officially. Ryan, awesome. If you're watching this video, we have to link up, my friend. We have to go on a run. You have to come in sauna plunge. But he was just like, "Hey, Matt." And I was just like, dude, you just see this man's curly blonde hair. I'm just like, I knew who he is. And like, I've watched a ton of his content.
How does that make you feel that he recognized you first?
It's humbling. I mean, I don't think it makes me feel like good or bad. I just think it's just like, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because I actually really look up to how he storytells. Like, to me, when I think about people that are in this space that are like captivating in whatever way, they're really inspiring, or they're really a good athlete, or their ability to just tell a story to keep someone enticed, which to me, it's actually what I relate to the most, because it's something that I'm trying to continue to like sharpen. And yeah, like I look at him and like Isaiah and like Mr. Beast, and I'm just like there's something about the way that they understand the platform of YouTube itself, And then the way to like actually execute on keeping people entertained, keeping the retention high, like for whatever reason, they've like mastered that art. Like YouTube is an art in its own right. Short form is dope. You and I have built our businesses and brands on short form content, but the layering of YouTube and longer form of keeping someone entertained for like 10 minutes is a different beast.
Totally different.
Different beast.
What's do you know what like your all-time most viewed video is?
Yeah, by far. It's the video that I've produced and shot on an iPhone. It's a 30-day creatine transformation video that I think has 1.9 million views.
It's on YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
Wow.
Like, I made this when I was at my mom's house.
I think I've seen the thumbnail. I've never actually clicked on the video.
I mean, I honestly should probably be resurfacing the thumbnail and like re-pulling that one. But that is by far, and I've worked with Brady, Chris, like my editing team, and like I shot that video on an iPhone and edited on iMovie when I was in the weeds of my mom's house, and I hated the editing process. But like that just shows you, for anyone out there, like you could have all the equipment, you can have all the stuff, and sometimes it's just about how you overlay the story. It's how you actually tell it that matters.
Dude, that's like Casey Neistat's mantra. He's probably my favorite creator of all time.
I'm a major fan.
And it's because of his storytelling abilities. Like he, even to this day, like he doesn't shoot on like a super fancy camera. It's like a Sony DSLR or something probably, but it's not like some cinema camera that's, $20,000. It's just like, it's just the storytelling. That's why he's so good. He started doing it on like these shitty little VHS cameras on like HBO or whatever. So
he's a beast.
He preaches it of just like the story's king. Like, doesn't matter what camera you have, what you look like, what anything else is. It's just like, can you tell a good story and keep people entertained?
Did you see his latest video? The marathon one? Bro.
So good. That's like the epitome of Casey.
Unbelievable.
It's so
good. If you haven't watched that video by Casey Neistat, I think it's, I forgot what it's, what's the guy's name? It's like a syphilis, not syphilis.
Sisyphus.
Sisyphus, yeah, it's Sisyphus in the Dream or something. It's really good.
Yeah.
The title would actually not even make you understand. It wouldn't even make you think it's about running, which is dope.
Yeah.
And his ability to storytell on that, I think it's top notch. And to your point, I think even with someone like Casey, like he still edits a lot of his shit, which I respect. I'm like, it's actually impressive.
To be at that
it really
level.
is. It's really impressive.
Because he's 10, 20 million YouTube subscribers or something. I don't know. I mean, he's done like 1,000+ videos.
He's, I think, at like 11 or 12 mil.
Yeah. And that gives me, because sometimes my like business kind of brain is like, I got to delegate this. And I've tried delegating the editing and it just didn't work. Because I'm like, especially when you shoot and edit, it's like, exactly what you're trying to get, and handing that off to somebody else can be a real challenge. Like delegating can be hard. So it depends on like what you like doing with your time. I like editing. I know a lot of people don't. And so if you don't like it and somebody else can do it better, then delegate that out. But I enjoy the process of editing. So I still edit pretty much everything other than the podcast. I still edit everything.
Yeah. That is something, Jeremy, that I wish I leaned into more.
Like you wish you edited more?
Like a weird part of me. But like I don't know. I think that it's understanding strengths and weaknesses. But to your point, like I think about like Casey and even what you just said, and even like Nick, like how far they were still in the dirt and in the weeds of their channel, while also being very successful and amassing a major audience. Yeah. And I think some of that is just like maybe allocating time differently and not spending as much on shorts and like shorter form content in general. But no, I do find that as like, to your point, like when you have the creative eye of shooting something, understanding what you're trying to get across, and you know that there's a certain part of that thing that you shot that needs to be in there to deliver on the message, right, it hits different.
Yeah, and I feel like the editing is where you can be, at least in my experience, the most creative. And that's where I feel like you can really learn the storytelling aspect. Especially like if you have to take somebody else's footage and edit it. That's where I learned the most of, like when I was doing freelance stuff, I'd take a lot of other people's footage and I'd have to piece it together and edit it. And it has to make sense logically and to some extent chronologically. So the editing. Do you edit like your short form stuff or?
I edit short form some. Yeah, some. There's some stuff I don't, but like there's still a lot that I do.
Yeah.
I love content.
I do too.
I can talk about this all day.
Yeah.
I want to talk about partnerships. When you first got into it, this is dope because you kind of check off the category of electrolytes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other categories as Jeremy Miller, as an endurance runner, that you are very open to potentially working with partners with.
For sure.
For someone at home that's like just starting their journey, like what was the first partnership you got after you started making content?
Oh, dude, I remember it was so stupid. It was when we lived in Hawaii. I had maybe like, I don't know, 1,000 Instagram followers, not very many. And I was like really into photography at the time, and I was trying to learn photography. And I saw these Instagram photographers had this like glass ball. It was like a sphere, and it didn't do anything. You just like put it in your photos, and they sent it to me for free. And I thought it was the coolest thing. So I just like would put this glass ball like in my photos. It was the most random weird thing. And they're probably not even in business anymore because it doesn't make sense. But that was like my first brand deal. And then I remember it was a lot of clothing brands. I feel like there's so many clothing brands out there just willing to give free clothing away because it's cheap. But a lot of clothing brands where I was like, dude, you're gonna send me product for free, and I don't have to pay for it. I can just like post about it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. So, I mean, if you're trying to go into the career of a content creator, if you're trying to get brand deals, I feel like, one, start creating content is probably step one. But two, maybe like whatever brands you enjoy using organically, just use it and put it in your content and tag them in it. Like that's where the majority of my brand deals have come from, are like brands that I genuinely use and genuinely like. I'll just start using it. I'll buy it, and then I'll just start tagging them. And then if they don't respond after a while, I'll send them a DM, or I'll try and email them or something and say, hey, I really love your product. I'd love to work with you. And then a lot of times, I mean, you probably get hit up by a million brands. I get like, I don't know, 4 or 5 emails a day from like the most random brands I've never even heard of. And I mean, you could take those, and I kind of did that route when I first started of like, oh, I'll just take anything because they're paying me. I'm like, shoot, this is cool. But then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I should probably dial back and only work with brands I actually care about or want to use. So now my kind of litmus test is like, if a brand hits me up, I've never used the product or anything, I'll say, can you send me the product so I can try it out, make sure it's good first. If I do like the product, then I ask myself, would I genuinely spend my own money on this? And like, would I use this in my own routine? And if the answer is yes, then I'm like, okay, you can pay me. I'll use your product. I'll promote it because I like it. But it's a lot easier said than done, because if a brand's like, here's 10K, but you don't really love our product, it's like, how do you say no to that? It can be hard to say no sometimes. So there's a balance to it, I think. But yeah, and I don't know. That's all I've got for you.
It is a tough balance. I mean, that's a great example. I think it's, I think at a human level, like you got to understand like how you want to connect with your audience and like what you're willing to like sell them or influence them on potentially getting. To your point, selfishly, like if you need to pay your bills and like have shit and like someone's offering you $10,000, like, you just want me to make a TikTok or like an Instagram reel or like just a story, I'd be lying if I didn't take some of those deals and I was like, yo, I mean, it's a 5-figure number. I mean,
I've done that before.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's very human.
Yeah.
At the human level, it's like, this is a business.
Yeah.
And sometimes you make moves that aren't always based on your morals and values. But I think if you continue to always operate in that fashion, then it leads you down a road of just being a slave to the system or a slave to any brand that reaches out, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to be. And that's when I first started getting followers and I actually could get like decent pay from some of the brands, that's where it made me realize like, okay, I'm doing too much stuff. I was working with like 8 brands. I was making a bunch of money, but nobody was buying the products because there's no conversion from the audience because they probably knew I didn't really use it and I was just getting paid. So it just felt disingenuous. And I was like, okay, I gotta reassess my morals, I guess, or my filter for working with brands. And so exactly, like at that point, like when I left BPN trying to figure out the content creation game, I definitely took deals just because they paid well.
Of course.
And maybe that's where you can start, and maybe you just go through that as part of the process to learn about it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to pay your bills for sure.
Hey, if your lights aren't still working, then you can't go get the deal that you want to get anyway. So it's like, you might as well survive for the next month at least.
What's the like, do you have any regrets on brand deals you've done? Like, what's the worst one you've ever had? You don't have to say the brand maybe, but.
I've can honestly say this. Someone's asked me this before. I don't think that there's any brand that I've taken a deal with that I wasn't like somewhat of a believer in, but there's definitely brands where I just got a shit deal.
Yeah.
That I then, for whatever reason, was stuck in a 6, 8, 12-month contract where I just felt like I definitely undervalued myself in this deal. And part of that is as you're building and you're starting to, you want to build trust with a company, or you do like a product and you actually believe in it, they might not see the value in you that you see in yourself. And part of that is just an internal game and understanding that, like, I think of this as like contracts in the NFL. It's like your rookie contract. Sometimes you have to take a bullet on that first one, knowing that year 2 and 3, you're going to have way more leverage. And if they don't want to take it, then that's on them. But in terms of like actual deals where I'm like this, just like, put it this way. One experience I could think of was an agency had like brokered me a deal, because I don't have an agent or management. And I just didn't like working with the agency and the way that they communicated and the way that they wanted like 15 different revisions left a spoiled taste in my mouth of like, yo, this video already sucks because now I'm making it in your voice and not mine.
Yeah.
I think I actually get more frustrated when like I have to make videos like that, where I feel like it's just kind of like a major corporation and now I'm just script reading what you want me to say, you know?
Yeah, that's when a brand hits me up and that's how they want to do it, is like,
it's never good.
Here's the topic, here's talking points you have to hit. There's a fine line of going too far.
I think it's okay to have like bullet points of like, yeah, like these are like some main things. If you could touch on these, it'd be nice. But like, if you're restructuring a video 5 to 6 times, it's just like the back and forth. I was just like frustrated about that.
Yeah, my favorite is when they're just like, incorporate it organically into your content. Tell people how you use it, how you like it.
It's the best way.
Yeah.
Do you have management?
No, I do everything myself.
Do you find that you enjoy that?
It's time consuming, emailing and communicating. I don't mind it, I guess. But I just don't like the idea of someone else potentially making decisions for me. I don't know what it would be like to have a manager, I guess. But have you ever worked with one?
I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like really, so I can't say. But I don't mind it. It works for right now. Like,
yeah.
I read through my emails every day, so I get everything. I get all the DMs and everything. But yeah, in terms of like finding the right payment, I guess, or like the right pay or compensation, that's a really hard thing. I feel like most content creators have to navigate.
Yes.
And for me, 2 things helped. One, ask, like you kind of said already, like ask yourself, what is this worth to you to post? And might not need to be $35,000. Like, it has to be sort of realistic, depending on like how many followers you have, and what you think it's worth to other people, and what it's worth to you, more importantly. But that, and then also like being around other creators and be like, how much did you charge for this? How much did this brand pay you? Because hanging around with you or other people in Austin, I'm like, dude, I'm not charging enough.
Yeah.
And that gave me the confidence of like, okay, I can charge for more. Not that you're trying to screw brands over, but it's like, if that's what it's worth, then you might as well get it.
Period.
Yeah.
I think that latter piece is the number one thing that helped me too. Like, yo, today's price is not tomorrow's price.
Yeah.
And I think that framework, it's just, like, I don't think that it's right to like, just like throw out a crazy number, but at times attempt it and see if a brand budges. But I think it's also interesting. Like I had a conversation with the creator, when I did this thing with Dick's Sporting Goods with the Pittsburgh Marathon, and we were just talking about like budget and like what we got compensated for it. And it was very interesting to hear what another creator was getting compensated, but also how other creators at times, like, because at the end of the day, it's a whole marketplace. If you charge 15, 20% less than someone with the same amount of followers, a brand's gonna be like, yo, or if you charge 15 to 20% more than someone that has 1 million followers and you have 150, 140, whatever, a brand's gonna be like, why is so-and-so who has 5x, 8x your following charging way less than you? In the mind of the brand, it's like, oh, this is what someone with 1 million followers is worth. That's not always true, because if the person with 1 million followers doesn't know that they're worth way more, that's not on Jeremy Miller, that's on the other creator. Right. And I think it's an interesting landscape of the best way to find out is actually, to your point, talk with other creators, like just talk around other industries, other niches. Like, what does this type of brand pay?
Yeah.
Like, what does a Nike pay versus Procter and Gamble?
Right.
What does like Sony pay versus GoPro? Like, it's like having those conversations with people. It's a very, very critical piece. And if you live somewhere, you don't have a lot of creators around you. I think that's where like finding people online, different creator groups or people that have agencies that can maybe help you with that, not to hire management, but just to seed, ask questions, and if you see if you can get those answers.
Why don't you have a manager? I'm curious.
I enjoy so I have someone that helps me with admin. So someone that responds to emails and all that stuff.
Okay, that's nice.
I enjoy the process of actually learning the business side.
Like negotiation.
100%. Because I feel like at the end of the day, like I have had mentors that have had managers that have told me that, like, Matt, like, if you really don't want to touch it, if you want to be more organized and not invoice and not have to hunt a brand down because they're delayed on payment, which I've literally had to go through a 5-figure number, Jeremy. I'm like, yo, we're 65 days past the due and I need my freaking bread.
I had one of those recently.
It's annoying. Like, if you don't want to do those things of hunting that stuff down, then yeah, I think it could make sense. But personally, I don't mind it. I'd rather save the 20% of that cut and reinvest it back into the team.
Right.
Whether that means hiring someone for admin or hiring someone to build out YouTube or to build out my email list. Like, that's how I see it. Is like, I don't mind growing slower, making mistakes as I go, if I can keep more of the money to reinvest it. I'm not like keeping the 20% selfishly, like I want to now go buy a car or buy whatever. It's always to reinvest it back into the business. And in the current state, I've definitely had some people have like try to represent me. And this is my first response, Jeremy. I'm like, this is what I always say. Show me what you can do. I'll give you the cut of whatever you typically have with an agreement with the creator, but show me you have that much value, then go find me 2 or 3 deals that are paying me significant money, and I'll legitimately think about it. And every time I've said that, no agency or any agency has ever came back and gave me 2 or 3 deals. And that just goes to show that it's like, at the end of the day, the hardest thing that we're doing is the work of posting. It's putting yourself out there.
Right.
People are reaching out to you just because they can get your email through Instagram and then they directly communicate with you. At the end of the day, you want to build a relationship with the brand, because I believe that there's bigger things that you can do down the line versus having an agent rep you all the time.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there's great agencies, there's great agents. I have a lot of friends that own agencies, so it's not bad blood. It's just, as a creator, you have to understand, like, what's your bandwidth with business?
Yeah.
How much are you willing to, like, eat shit a little bit, make a bad deal, undervalue yourself, and then learn from it? And if you don't want to go through that, then hire someone and give them the 20% outright. But like, I think that's a personal decision, and that's why I haven't.
Yeah, that learning aspect is huge for any business or any endeavor. I'm just like,
dude, it's critical.
I feel like every good CEO I've encountered, they know like every aspect of the business because they were in it. They like grew it. They were packing orders. They were doing operational stuff. They were doing this. They were doing that. Like, I think it's important to spend some time, maybe not all your time or forever, but spend some time learning every single piece of the business. And that is an aspect of it for sure. That's what we try and do with Switchback, is like having like a CPG brand that there's so much to work on. Like, there's emails that has to be sent, SMS, there's communicating with the manufacturers. There's just so many pieces, and trying to just learn all that. So then when we do hire somebody on to help, we can teach them and lead them properly. But to that point of like reinvesting back in, that's what we're doing with Switchback. Is we launched it August 2023. We're not going to pay ourselves till August 2024.
Love that.
So a full 12 months, no paying ourselves, fully back into the business. And it just allows it to grow faster. Fortunately, we're in a position that like I do content, Brock does content, he does other things, so that we have other sources of income we can rely on for that. But that's anybody starting a business. If you can hold off on paying yourself as long as you can, definitely do it.
I think that's something that I've chatted with my buddy Tyler about when it comes to you and Switchback, is that it's a beautiful thing. Exactly that. Because you can have other revenue streams. Like, you create a longer runway for Switchback to succeed.
Yeah.
Because you can hold off on the marketing budget, paying yourself as a founder. And that's a critical component when it comes to creating a brand. A lot of brands don't have that. And they're literally like, I have 4 months to make this happen or I'm screwed. Dude. And you have to operate in a different way when you're running a business like that.
Yeah, you've probably had similar experiences. Like, I talked with a lot of brands. They're all like VC backed, and they're like, we have like 3 months of funding left, and then if we don't make these sales or sell these products, like, we're probably gonna go out of business. And I'm like, I don't want to run a business like that. Like, stay profitable as long as you can. You know, I mean, again, we have the luxury of like having an online audience to sell to. It definitely helps the business and helps it grow quicker. But like, trying to not take on investors and take on any externalities that are going to screw up the business in the long run. Just like that grassroots organic approach is for sure the best way to go about it.
Not everyone has the leverage to do that, obviously. But if you are someone that has built distribution, I think it's like how businesses are starting to pivot and move forward. Because to your point, you have a longer runway.
When do we get a Matt Choi product?
Jeremy, very soon we'll be announcing on this podcast, hopefully this year. Which I'm very pumped about. And maybe we could chat more about it on your pod. But this is about you, Jeremy. All right. Question, content, or partnerships. What is the biggest brand deal that you've ever gotten?
Ooh.
And you don't have to say that brand if you don't want to.
I'll say it. It's I think this would be the biggest one. It's 2Before.
Okay.
That's the like black currant powder.
Yes.
I guess cumulative pay. I've been working with them for like over a year. Mm-hmm. That's definitely been the best. They pay me on like a quarterly basis.
Okay.
I don't know if I should say how much they pay me. Should I?
That's up to you. You said nothing's off limits.
As long as somebody from the IRS isn't watching. I'll just say it's they pay me like
Jeremy, okay. Just spit it out.
Okay. If I just did content with them, I could probably survive by just them. Like if that was my only thing, just this
6-figure number or 5-figure number?
It's 5 figures.
Okay.
But to have one brand pay that is like pretty nuts.
Very much.
So that's cumulative pay. That's probably been the biggest. The biggest one-off was probably my recent one with Brooks.
Okay.
I think that one was 10K.
Okay.
And that was like 3 Instagram reels.
Love it.
And then they like flew me out to Orlando for the trials and the like marathon trials, and
that was a dope
hotel and everything. That was a sick experience. So yeah, that was the biggest one.
Love that.
What about you? I know it's a lot bigger than that.
I'm gonna give Jeremy game right now. You can charge more.
I know.
That's just the game. Like if you leave away creators out there, or just Jeremy leaving away from this pod, you could definitely charge more. The most I made off of one video ever.
Drum roll.
33K.
Damn. Can you say who it was?
Yes. Adidas.
Ooh.
That was a cross promotion though. So one TikTok and one Instagram. So technically it's 2 videos, but it's the same video. So I mean, I'm not like, I don't say that to brag. It's just,
it should give other people confidence.
1000%. I think this is really the punchline is that I'm a big Naval Ravikant fan. Have you heard, you know who that is?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
What's
the Almanac?
The Almanac, yeah.
Eric Jorgensen. Guys, if you listen to this pod up to this point, please go get that book. It's by far my favorite book. I read it once a year. I gift it to someone new every single year. And Jeremy, my 100% on that book in terms of the person receiving it, loving it, I have not missed. No one that I've recommended that book or given that book to has been like, Matt, that shit didn't really hit. Like every single person has said, this shit is unbelievable.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. And one of the key things that I took away from that book was leverage and how media is currently the highest form of leverage. Yeah. And so much of like how I even think about like my journey so far and dude, the trajectory that you're on is like, you're building leverage every single day by creating brands, by creating your personal brand. Like this is something that will live forever. Your podcast, all these things. And I think it's what a lot of people should get inspired of, not about the marathons and running a fast time. Like I don't like consider myself just a runner. Like I think I'm a media company. And I think that pivot has been a major component of the leverage I've been able to build. And I think it's something that you're doing as well. And for anyone out there, it's like, yo, like, yes, having a passion and something that you're interested in is dope. But imagine yourself as a media company and then showcasing whatever that thing is.
Yep.
Will change the perspective, I think.
Yeah, you just use running as like the
vehicle.
Yeah, the vehicle. That's perfect. Perfect way to explain it.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah, being a media company, whether if you're just one person, you're that one person media company. I love thinking of it that way.
It's amazing.
Media should always come first. Content, and when you're building a brand or a business, I think in 2024, I think how can you invest the most? Because that's where everybody's attention is at.
Period.
How can you invest the most into media and content?
As we come to a close, I'm a big fan of this framework of like board of advisors. Whether you know them or not, I know that you read, I know that you consume a lot of content. You've interviewed some amazing humans and CEOs and business owners. Who are like some of your board of advisors? Whether you know them or not, whether you've met them or not, that have helped you along this process?
I gotta say you, for sure.
I'm humbled.
In the content space, definitely you. In the like business side of things, probably you know Pierce Shao? He runs like the 200-mile races.
I know Pierce through you, yes.
Got the blonde mullet.
Yes.
One of the nicest people I've ever met. But he gets me thinking a lot, like big picture, like gets rid of my limiting mindset when it comes to business. Brock, definitely my business partner for Switchback. Travis, you know Travis Osborne?
Travis, I mean, we ran with him.
Yeah, he's the
anesthesia.
Yeah, completely
Shout out,
different,
Travis.
totally different industry, like polar opposite from what we do. But he gives me so many ideas. He just gets me thinking, and I think it helps because he has kind of an outside perspective. He loves running, but like he doesn't do anything with content creation.
Right.
So it's almost like talking to like somebody in the audience.
Yes.
I love that aspect of it. Yeah, those are probably my top people.
Okay.
Bree, I gotta put Bree in there.
Love that.
The fiance.
Shout out to the
She's
fiance.
like, she's my ultimate critic. She humbles me more than anybody I know.
Shout out Bree. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I'm curious.
How about like even outside of people you know, like.
Oh, okay. Like inspiration.
Yeah, it's just like if other people can't get to Pierce and Bree, like,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? Like they might not be readily available.
Okay. Casey Neistat.
Love it.
By far my favorite creator. Shoot. I love Rogan. And maybe not Rogan because of Rogan, but just his platform and like the guests he has on. I honestly credit most of my useless knowledge I have in my brain due to his podcast. And I feel like listening to him has helped me so much with my podcast because I feel like I'm able to talk to like a lot of different people from different walks of life because just hearing all those people on his podcast too. Within the running space, I'm reading this book right now. If you're trying to learn about running, specifically like kind of from a data and science perspective, this is probably the best book I could recommend. It's called The Science of Running. Magnus, have you read it?
Yeah, it's a great book.
I'm like halfway through it and I've learned so much about running. Like, I think one of the cool things too is I learned a lot of this through my own journey, but having it confirmed from like a scientific standpoint and like, oh, they've done studies with this actually. Yeah. So it's not just me experiencing this. It's like everybody experiences this. So that helps me in my own journey and coaching people and stuff. So yeah, I'm sure I probably think of some other ones. I'm just blanking.
I love the Science of Running one.
It's good.
It's really good. A PT friend of mine, when I was still living in Maryland, had recommended me to read that. And to your point, I think you played hockey your whole life and me playing football, like when you come from a different sport, like we understand training from a different capacity. And with running, it's like it's a one-dimensional, but it's sports specific and it's like a different format of training. But a lot of those nuances actually still overlay into running.
Definitely.
And I think that book for a lot of new runners, it's legitimately a textbook.
Yeah.
It's a textbook. Like even the size of it is like
very dry.
Yes, it's very dry. But Steve Magnus is like a guru in the biomechanics and running space. Yeah. That's definitely a good one. Another one I really like that I think you might like in the realm of recovery and maintenance. It's a friend of mine. His name is Kelly Starrett. He's a PT. He kind of like created the term mobility back in like the early 2000s and 2010. He's a PT. It's called Ready to Run. And it's a really good, there's like 10 frameworks around prepping pre and post, during, and things that you can do to stay healthy. And it's something that's definitely helped me.
I like that.
Injuries for you, really quick. Anything major?
Before I answer that, I want one more book I want to plug.
Love it.
It's by far my favorite book I've ever read. And it's more of the mental side of things. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you heard of this?
I think I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah, it's by Dr. Maxwell Maltz.
Okay.
He wrote it in like the 50s, so it's been around for a while, but it's kind of a little bit more of the scientific approach to just what we input into our brains and how we think about things is our realities. That's what dictates what we experience in life is what we input and how we perceive things, basically. Everything's a perspective. Like essentially no thing is inherently good or bad. It's just how are you perceiving that? Yeah. So I love that book, Psycho-Cybernetics.
I love that.
And the injuries, well, when I first started, I had a lot, like plantar fasciitis, runner's knee, shin splints, like all the typical stuff. For the first like 2 to 3 years, I really haven't had anything that's like totally stopped me from running, fortunately. And I think I credit a lot of that to just a very slow buildup. And I don't really follow training programs a whole lot. Like I really just do everything based off of feel. And I write a lot of my own stuff because I know how my body responds. I do work with a coach occasionally. Like if I have a specific goal time in mind or a specific race. But even within, if they give me a program and it's like, go run 10 miles and I'm like, my ankle is killing me right now. There's no way I'm going to do 10 miles. I'll do like 7 or 8 miles. Or I'll like hop on a bike. So I think mostly just developing that intuition.
Love that.
I think helps prevent injuries because 99% of running injuries come from just overuse or overtraining. And so I think sometimes you have to go through those things to learn where your tolerance is at for certain things. But then once you develop that intuition for your body, I think that's where running off of feel is probably the best thing you can do.
I love that.
Injuries.
I love that. When you do have stuff that just pops up, like what are some like maintenance and recovery stuff that you enjoy?
Cross training, like hop on a bike, walking. I think walking is probably the best thing you can do.
Underrated.
It's so underrated, both mentally and physically. Dude, I'm telling you, I don't do a lot of like mobility.
Jeremy, I'm gonna change that.
We're
gonna work out more together.
I don't ever stretch. I couldn't tell you last time
Well, stretching I think is actually overrated.
Yeah.
Like, how much do you foam roll, myofascial release?
0.
We need to get Jeremy on that. We need to get Jeremy on that train.
But the hard thing,
I mean, it's also working.
That's my one thing is like whatever I'm doing is working. I find the active recovery is the number one thing. I guess foam rolling is technically active recovery, but walking and biking, I think, are the 2 things that have helped me the most because blood flow is the number one way to recover. And so however you can get blood flow without that impact of running is going to help recover the fastest. So that, I think diet goes into it a lot. Sleep goes into it a lot. There's a number of factors. I try and sleep like minimum 7 hours a night. If I can, like 8. But
I'm on that train.
Dude, if I can tell if I get 7 or less than 7, I feel like shit the next day. Like mentally and then just physically, like sore. That's where I feel like things pop up maybe.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Last thing, raw milk.
Damn it.
I want to know more. And I talked to Harry and Brett. You know the Meat Mafia guys, right?
Of course.
Like, yo, Harry, you told me you were going to get me raw milk. Like, I want to try it. What's the pitch about raw milk?
Dude, I know it's probably weird to most people, but, the response I always get is, you're a grown adult. Why do you need milk? That's for baby cows, which I understand that. But it's also readily available and it's extremely nutritious. If I drink like regular pasteurized store-bought milk, it destroys my stomach. Like I thought I was lactose intolerant forever.
Interesting.
Because I like the taste of milk. It has protein, has carbs and fats, a lot of calories. But it would just destroy my stomach. I'd get like bubble guts and shit. So I heard about raw milk, how people that might be lactose intolerant can actually drink raw milk because essentially, to keep it simple, when you pasteurize milk, you heat it up really hot. It kills all the bacteria, including the good bacteria, including all the digestive enzymes. And they're in there for a reason to help a stomach with stomach acid and gut bacteria process it. So when you kill all that, you're basically just drinking this like weird, like watered down substance. It's not really milk anymore. So it loses a lot of nutrients, loses a lot of enzymes and stuff. And so that's why people that think they're lactose intolerant can drink raw milk
with no problem.
With no problems. And so, I mean, my 100K race I did a few months ago, I drank like half a gallon during the race because it's calories. It's like, it's so easy to get down.
Liquid calories.
I think it tastes good. So I don't know. I think the milk thing is weird, but it works. So
you gotta, every human should find what works.
Do you like milk? Like, could you just drink like a glass of milk?
I normally don't. Like, I used to eat a lot of cereal as a kid. Me and my brother grew up on eating cereal and milk, just like most kids. Now I don't drink it just like as a glass, but like I'll pour like milk in my smoothies to make it a little like more better consistency than water.
Yeah.
And if I'm like making some cookies and I'm like, I want to dip my cookies with milk, like then I'll have milk, but very rarely am I just drinking milk.
If you can drink milk with no stomach issues, like you're probably fine just drinking pasteurized milk.
Fair.
But if you want,
I want to try it.
You should. I think it tastes better too. It's like a little bit thicker. It's a little bit creamier because it's not homogenized.
Yeah.
So when it's homogenized, they like separate the milk and the fat a little bit more, or I think it's something along those lines. But yeah, it's I don't know. I like it.
I love that.
In Austin, it's easy to get too because there's so many.
I've heard.
There's so many farms around here.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, you can't buy it in stores though. You have to buy it through like a farmer's market or like.
You need to find someone that can deal you some raw milk.
I've been thinking about it, dude. Maybe I'll just like get my own cow or something.
The farm is next for Jeremy.
There we go.
Dude, this has been really fun. This flew by.
This was fun, man. How long was this?
This is a little over an hour.
I love it.
I don't know when we exactly started. It doesn't really matter.
Podcasts are like a time warp.
It is. It's just like, we were lifting and then we started a little late. Nonetheless, it was really fun having you. Jeremy, where can the people find you?
Hey, dude, thanks for having me on. This has been a blast.
Anytime.
Jeremy Miller on Instagram, Jeremy Miller on YouTube, the Jeremy Miller podcast, jeremymiller.io. I've got some like training programs and merch and stuff on there if you want to check it out. TikTok. Don't really use TikTok, but I probably should. Jeremy Miller Fit, I think is my handle on there. Yeah.
Love it. And then people, go get some Switchback if you're in the market of electrolytes.
Yes. Go Switchback on Instagram. Go switchback.co. Appreciate it, dude. This has been fun.
This has been really fun. I appreciate all you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys the next time. Jeremy, always a pleasure. We're going to go do some more mobility now.
Peace.
Peace.